Hello, and thank you for joining me. I am Krista Snow, coming to you from El Paso, Texas, right here on the border. 2 years ago, I decided to create a podcast of mini-series focused on outliers and the unique journeys we walk, because truly, we need each other. I've built a collective to dive into a variety of topics from healing and relationships to business advice and neurodivergence. My commitment to you is to bring you integrity and high quality, because I believe in people and their potential. So without further ado, welcome to this space where you can join the collective as we listen, learn the flip side, and ultimately level up our lives together. I'll be your host, and you're listening to the Level Up Podcast. Welcome back to the Level Up Podcast. This is part 3 of the 3-part series on narcissism. So I have Melissa with me again today to finish and cap out this series. And the last episode was pretty heavy. And today we're going to try to pull it all together and talk about what's next. So in the first and second episodes, we really talked about how to identify a narcissist and a narcissistic relationship and experience and all of that. And then we deep dove into the intricacies of what it looks like. So today we'll start with low high as usual, and then we'll recap the first 2 episodes and get into it. So Melissa, you want to start?
Sure. My low is I'm moving next week. Yeah, next week. And it's very stressful making sure that I have everything packed up, everything ready to go. Do I have everything ready so that when it's the day of moving, we're, able to get into the new place, everything. So it's a little bit stressful and chaotic, but we'll carry on. My high is I woke up early this morning and I went to the gym. And it felt amazing. And it was leg day. Leg day is my favorite. So
nice. And kudos. Go you.
Thanks.
I think my low is just dealing with this twisted vertebrae issue. The last several days, I feel like I've had this pinched nerve again and need to go back to the chiropractor. So that's kind of my low, but my high is that today I woke up with my back not hurting, and I'm very excited about that as we're about to start recording this episode, because sitting in one place for a long time is sort of hard when it hurts. Even sitting still, it hurts. So that's amazing. That's a blessing, and I'm super excited about that.
Absolutely. Praise God. That's huge. I'm very excited for you.
Likewise. So to recap the first couple of episodes, I think that identifying the attitude behind the behavior is really important. And so we recapped the things that you experience when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, and it's feelings like, on the narcissist part, it's all about me. And, so they'll say even things like, enough about me. What do you think about me? It's kind of like the attitude behind it is selfish, completely selfish, and all about them. The lack of reliability is an issue. Their obsession with instant gratification, entitlement, so cutting in line, cheating, having a double standard for how you're treating them versus how they're treating you, and criticizing. And so those 5 things, it's all about me, lack of reliability, instant gratification, entitlement, criticizing, I think are really big signs of what's going on deep down. And then, as we discussed in the last episode, it affects your physiology, because as your mindset is shifting and you're diving deeper and deeper into this trauma bonded situation, then your cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, raises, and the hippocampus shrinks, and that's your short-term memory and decision-making function. And then your amygdala swells, And that's your emotions. And so it leaves you in this constant state of survival mode. So when it comes down to it, once you've identified that you don't want to be in this situation, it's hard because this type of trauma bond narcissism relationship leaves you in this sad in, sad out situation, because you're sad with them because it hurts to be treated the way that you're being treated. And you're sad when you leave because you feel like you need them. And you keep going back and you don't understand why. So there's no happiness in or out. And it's just this discouraging feeling. Even once you decide to leave and think that there's freedom beyond, the hardest part is that the freedom does not come for a long time, because there's still a lot more to be done. And so it's hard to talk about the hard times when you're wrapped up in that trauma bond. And there's also a shame in not sharing. And then there's a shame in sharing because of the way people react to the things that you're sharing. And one of the biggest resources of help for a couple of years as I was going through this situation and trying to figure out why it was like it was. And I was so confused. Dr. Ramani on Facebook has a page dedicated entirely to narcissism. And it was really helpful because one of the things that she said was that your truth is inconvenient for the world, because the world doesn't want to think that people don't want to think the world is such a bad place. If you think about someone that's burglarized, and what's the first question the world asks? Did you lock your door? As if it's their fault that someone came in and violated their private space because they didn't lock their door. There's preventative measures, but that was not their fault. And victims of assault are less likely to be believed because of this mindset that infiltrates the world, where we all walk on the defensive instead of the offensive. And so we want to poke holes in everything. And when something doesn't sound nice, it's easy to poke holes in that. So the shame of sharing a lot of times doesn't seem any better than the shame of not sharing. And when you're in that, it's just very hard to reconcile that internally. And, this is where I'd really like to be able to pull together the what next for people. So I'll turn it over to you, Melissa. What are your thoughts on the last two episodes and sort of recapping that or what I've said?
Yeah. Going with what you were just talking about, what next? The best piece of advice I got was get a journal, write everything down. Because one of the things that I find, and I think that this is a very common thing for people who are in this situation, is you talk yourself out of the abuse, almost like you're gaslighting yourself. Other women have it worse. It's not that bad. He didn't mean to give me a black eye. Whatever it is that we tell ourselves that justify their behavior. If you write it down in your journal after it's happened, that's you talking to yourself. That's your truth, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions right in that moment. You can't, once it's written down, you can't take it back. You might forget and you might change the story later on, but you still have it written down to reference. And that's huge. And that is what I had to do. When I was growing up, I was a journaler. I journaled everything. I got married. and I stopped journaling. And I think also it's in that time that it's almost like I stopped trusting myself, because I was talking myself out of things, ignoring things, saying this is okay, whatever it is that I would use to justify whatever was happening. So first thing, get a journal, write it all down. You can trust yourself. You can trust your thoughts. You can trust your feelings. You can trust your emotions. But you do also have to realize that because of the trauma and the way that our body and our brains react to the trauma, you are going to do things and say things that a healthy person wouldn't say, think, and feel.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to yourself. And I think it's also important to get somebody on the outside that you can trust and that you can go to. And you can tell them, and you're going to have to get vulnerable, and it's hard. It's scary. You don't want to tell them the ugly truth, but you have to, because this person, if they love you and they love you right, they're going to tell you you deserve better, because you do deserve better.
Yeah. I think writing things down is more critical than I realized in the past. And when I was in the relationship with my ex, I remember talking to my sister about it at one point, because cheating had happened and we broke up for months, and then he came back and wanted another chance. And my sister told me to write down a pros and cons list. And that idea, simply the idea of writing it down, I didn't want to do it because I didn't think I needed to do it. And I was pretty conceptualized in my head. Why do I need to put it on paper? So what she told me was, you can't avoid it when you see it clearly. And I think that is exactly what you were just saying right now. And also, you may not remember exactly how you felt later down the line. And it helps to go back and look at that. I think the reason that I didn't want to do a pros and cons list also had to do with the fact that I couldn't actually explain the pros. I couldn't explain them because the pros were rooted with this, were connected to this deeply rooted desire of being loved and understood in a way that I couldn't articulate. And that's part of the problem. Because when you see things clearly, you can articulate them clearly. And I couldn't tell my therapist why I felt like he was a better option than other people, because she just wouldn't get it. That's in my mind how, like, no one gets that connection. No one will understand. Well, that's not really the case, because when you explain it and you are forced to explain it, you hear your own self try to explain something you can't explain in a way that doesn't add up. It adds up in your mind, but talking to people and journaling it, it doesn't add up when you actually put it out there. And that's part of what the trauma bond creates. It creates this fantasy idealism in your mind that negates the bad behavior, because the connection to that deep-rooted need is all that they have to fill once in a while to cover all wrongs. And that's where the problems start. So I think the journaling is so important. That's definitely, a piece of advice we're going to list out at the end, because I think journaling and writing things down is really important. And I actually didn't have that on my list. I have talking to someone on my list, but I forgot about how much journaling helped. Writing pros and cons list helped. And the cons list ended up being way longer than the pros because I couldn't actually list out pros. If I'm going to show this list to someone, there's pros that you don't put there because they don't make sense. So they made me feel this way. That's not a pro. What did they do? What did they do? And a narcissist doesn't do things. They say a lot of good things, but they don't do a lot of good things. And their actions are bad. And so that's where the breakdown comes, because they say the good, they charm, but they don't do good. They do bad and then continue saying good. And after they've hooked you, this disconnect of good and bad, it leads into the sad in, sad out. You're not happy with them. You're not happy without them. What do? I think journaling and writing things down is a really, really great piece of advice.
Thanks. Yeah. I think too, also with the, with talking with people, I think it's important to talk to people that know you with this person and also know you outside of that person.
Objectivity.
Sometimes my kids will want to talk about the things that they remember from our life with their dad. And one day we're driving down the road and my oldest says to me, "Do you remember the time Dad threw an ornament at your head?" And I almost stop because, yes, I remember this, but here's what the trauma has done to me. In my mind, I'm going, no, I made this up. He never did that to me. And I look at her and I go, "You want to tell me what you remember?" And so she proceeds to tell me about how this time we were at their swim practice. We came home and their dad still wasn't home. And typically he would come home during swim practice from work. Because he wasn't home, I knew exactly what was happening. He was drinking. Maybe with work buddies, maybe with his friends, didn't matter. He was off somewhere drinking. He does end up coming home about an hour after we get home, and he's very, very, very drunk. And I ask him, "How did you get here?" "Well, I drove here." "Where's your car? Why are you drinking and driving? I have told you if you're going to drink, I will come pick you up. It doesn't matter. It's selfish to be driving drunk. You're going to hurt somebody. You need to think about more than yourself in this situation because you have a family and there are other people on the road besides you." I mean, this is a fight we would have a lot. And it kept escalating and escalating and escalating. And the girls and I were in the process of decorating our tree for Christmas, and he grabs a Christmas tree ornament, rips it off the tree, and chucks it at my head. And I ducked just in time, only to have glass shattered around me. I legitimately thought I made this entire scenario up.
Really? How?
Because I have been in trauma for so long that I talked myself out of it.
So you thought that it didn't actually happen, or that it didn't happen the way that you were remembering?
I think it's a combination of both. Because yes, I remember the ornament flying at my head, but it's like I talked myself out of it. No, he didn't do that. You're just imagining things, Melissa. The ornament was just thrown. It's like I took myself out of the equation, like almost like I'm watching it instead of living it. But, and I asked her for clarification. I was like, "You're sure? You're positive he threw it at me?" And she said, "Mom, he was aiming for your face. You barely ducked in time." And my youngest pipes up from the back seat and goes, "I remember it too, Mom." And she was probably 6 when it happened.
Gives you a new perspective on it.
It does, for sure. So, and this is where I say writing things down is so important. I really wish that I had journaled during my marriage, because that's something I would have written down. But I think it's important to talk to people. And I'm not sitting here saying, go approach your kids and be like, do you remember this? No. Don't do that. You let your kids come to you. But it's important to talk about it. And your friends will notice things too. My friends did. I lost a friend because she could not stand him and the way he treated me.
Yeah,
and
I did
she
too.
told me so. And I felt like I had to protect him. So I stopped talking to her. When I left him and she found out, we reconnected. And I mean, to this day, there's so much damage to that friendship because of that relationship and the situations that I allowed myself to be in. But she was healthy enough to say, he treats you like crap and you let him.
Yeah, that's what I talked about on the last episode in my own life too, is, letting friends walk away because you can't pull yourself out of the spiral, even to save your own family and friend relationships. And I think a lot of that has to do with the isolation and the separation that they caused leading up to that, because the narcissist tries to isolate you and pull you into their world and out of yours. Because if you're very deeply connected to your own world, if you're a healthy person, that is not helpful for them. That is not what they want. They need you to be tied and bonded to them in a way that wants to make them happy, so much so that you'll give up of your own self and your own well-being to do it. And they're okay with that. I never really thought about it from a perspective of having kids, because I don't have kids. And so this story is really powerful, hearing your kids' perspective of what they observed, because, people in with my situation, since I didn't have kids, it was very outside perspective, like family or friends that heard about things or saw things or mediated fights between us, whatever. But, having your own kids tell you something like that must have also been difficult for you. Not just eye-opening, but difficult, because then the whole shame of what did I cause them to go through by not leaving, is something that you then have to reconcile as well. And that's hard.
It is hard. I cried. I would cry myself to sleep for days because I felt so bad and so guilty. And I told myself that they didn't see any of it. They didn't see me in the closet begging God, please kill me, because that would be better than this. They didn't see me running away from him from one side of our apartment to the other side and locking myself in a bathroom door while he's banging on the outside of it, trying to get in. I told myself all this stuff that they didn't see it, so they were okay. They didn't have trauma from this. But they do. And kids, you can hide it from them as much as you want, but they're gonna see it. And they are the best little truth tellers. They really are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It really is. I think that, there's a whole slew of advice that we can give people of what's next. I think the number one thing that I would want to tell people is, my friend, you are not alone. You are not alone. Even if you feel like you are not. I promise you that. Because feeling alone, I think that's the worst part of it all. Feeling bad is one thing, but we are made to connect with people. That's what humans thrive on, is community. And when that's ripped from you, and the one person you have community with destroys you too, you are alone, and you're alone by your own choice and your own doing. And it's really hard to go through that. I think the number one piece of advice, therefore, is know that you're not alone. Because if you know that you're not alone, then you know that maybe there's people that can surround you and understand you and help you get to the other side of it. And on the other side, there is freedom, but not immediately. It is hard, and it's dark, and it's a lot of turmoil. What's the number one piece of advice you would give? What is journaling?
Journaling. And I think alongside of journaling, there's a lot of people say, well, I can't afford a therapist. Yeah, I hear you. Therapy is expensive. There's also, we live in a day and age where there's a lot of resources out there and available. For a while, yeah, therapy was expensive. I couldn't do it. I didn't work at a place that provided things like 10 free therapy sessions a year,
Right.
So you have to get creative. There are plenty of people, therapists, who put their work out there, who share, they write these amazing books and they share them with us. They have these Instagram pages and they tell us helpful hints and, share amazing content. One of the ones that I follow and absolutely adore is Deborah Folletta. She is a Christian counselor therapist. She is a speaker. She is an author. She has a podcast. She is amazing. She wrote 2 books that really changed my life. The first one is Are You Really Okay? And in that book, she has you write out a timeline of your life. That timeline of my life opened my eyes drastically. And you realize where you need help. And it's okay to ask for help. It's hard. But like you said, you're not alone. You're never alone. Get yourself a community. Get plugged into a church. Find a friend. Maybe you have a sister. Maybe you have a mom, someone safe that you can talk to. Yeah.
I think it's really important. That's my number 2 advice, is give a voice to your story. Because whether that's journaling or talking to people, if you don't talk, what's that quote you said in the last episode? Be loud, because if you don't, others will suffer in silence.
Yeah. When you recover, or something about recovering loudly so that others won't die quietly.
Yeah. And we don't like things that don't look picture perfect, nicely wrapped in a box with a bow in the world. We don't like that. We like things that look nice, which is why we put on a face at times to present ourselves in a way that we think we need to. And when you're deeply hurting in this kind of relationship, it's easier to stay silent because of the reactions that you get of either disbelief, arguing, not believing you that, this person could do these types of things. It's harder to talk because of the reactions that you get than it is to stay silent.
Mm-hmm.
But staying silent, it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't do anything. And all it does will just dig you deeper into this hole. And it will take longer, and it will complicate your recovery if you don't speak up.
I am 5.5 years outside of my marriage, and I still struggle with that, with getting vulnerable, because I feel like at any moment somebody's going to come up to me and point and yell at me and start calling me a fraud, screaming at me. Yeah, this is
How
hard
dare
to
you?
talk about. Yes. Like, this is so hard to talk about. But it does help. It really does. There are triggering moments, and I want to curl up in a ball and I want to cry, and I never want to tell anybody about it. But there is so much strength, and there is so much freedom in speaking what happened. And I got to tell you, you want to feel strong? Tell somebody what's happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
You'll feel like crap. Give it a week or two, maybe longer. You'll start to feel strong. And at that point, what you're doing, you're advocating for yourself. You're still showing yourself by speaking the truth that you're lovable and you're worthy of love, because you are. Absolutely, 100%. You are worthy of love.
Yes.
You are worthy of being treated well.
Mm-hmm.
You are worthy of going to bed at night feeling safe, secure, and knowing that the person who's in the bed next to you, you can trust them.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But to know that, you have to stop blaming yourself.
Yep. That's
my number 3, is be willing to blame someone other than yourself for the first time.
That is so good.
Because it's not your fault for being treated like trash. It is their fault. And yeah, we need to take responsibilities for the things we did. But that does not mean that you deserve to be treated badly. Nothing you have done warrants someone to abuse you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And blaming myself was really hard to stop. Because until I stopped blaming myself, I wasn't actually going to take the action to get out of it. Because if I'm blaming myself, then that means I can fix it somehow. And until you start assigning blame to the appropriate parties, you won't be able to see that. And you will just stay in the spiral until you are willing for the first time to blame someone other than yourself for the situation you ended up in with this selfish person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are other resources? Dr. Ramani on YouTube was a very big resource for me. And there's a lot of others because I was in therapy, mentorship, discipleship, coaching with 2 different coaches, trauma coaching. I've done a lot of different things, but before I started investing in those things over the last 3 years, before that, Dr. Ramani was like a lifeline for me because she helped me understand. And I didn't believe her, just like nobody is going to believe someone telling you when you're in it, someone telling you, no, you don't need closure. You don't need them to explain why they treated you this way. It doesn't matter. Like, those things are very hard to hear and believe until you're out of it. And then you understand, oh yeah, every situation is going to look totally different, but it doesn't matter. The details don't matter. what is happening matters. The factors matter. And you are not being treated well. You cannot blame shift that away. You cannot change yourself to be better for someone who doesn't care about being better themselves. And being able to listen to people like Dr. Ramani or, read the books that you had suggested. I think there are a lot of resources out there that can get people started now. If you can't afford therapy, go to YouTube and look up Dr. Ramani.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that you have other resources as well.
Deborah Filetta is a big one for me. She does a lot of, Deborah Filetta is a big one. She does a lot of videos. Her podcast is huge. Actually, I love her podcast because what she does is she has these one-on-one therapy sessions with people who write in and say, I would like to talk about this with a therapist. And they consent and agree to it being recorded. And you can hear there are the stories of people who are going through these same exact things that you are going through. And she has some amazing advice. And it's not just, this is what you do, get out of it. No. She's giving you advice of where you need to look in yourself to actually get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, for me personally, I have God. I can't do anything without God. And he's carried me through every single storm. But at the same time, there has to be some self-strength to pick myself up and say, Father God, help me. What do I do next? And we live in a pretty interesting time where there are a lot of people who are very vocal about how to be healthy, about things that you can do to better yourself. There are dating coaches out there left and right who are giving really good, valuable advice about how somebody deserves to be treated in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And if you're watching those clips that come across Facebook or Instagram, and something inside you is telling you, doesn't this seem familiar? Listen to that. Listen to that inner voice. Get yourself some books. Find, if you can, find a therapist. Therapists are amazing. It's always good to have somebody to talk to, and therapists are so far outside removed of your situation. Oh, do it. You will thank yourself. Yeah, it costs money, but there are resources out there to help you find discounted therapists, or a lot of jobs places, or a lot of jobs now offer resources where you can get 10 free therapy sessions a year. That's provided at my job, and I love it. And I use it, and so do my kids. And through that, I found a therapist that I have continued to work with.
I think we should definitely do an episode in this healing series on therapy, because I think therapy is so critical. And I think that there's a lot of factors that lead to therapy being effective or ineffective. And finding the right therapist is super important. So you just piqued my idea generator with your with your statements right now, because I think we should absolutely talk about therapy on a full episode, because there's so much within that. I was someone who was pretty cynical about therapy. Like, I don't talk therapy. Like, I don't really know what it can do for me. But then I had friends that were, one specific friend that was a cynic, went through therapy, and he was like, it's amazing. Like, Krista, it's amazing. So I knew there was something to it because someone who was a total cynic more than I was said there was, and other people as well. And then other people hate it and say it doesn't work. But I knew there was something to it. And now I know some of, what that looks like and what that entails. And the reason I ended up in therapy was because I was going through this situation with my narcissistic ex, and my mom's best friend, who's known me my whole life. She heard the story that my mom was sharing, from a second person, third party perspective or whatever. And she knew instantly that was a narcissist because she had been married to one before. And when she heard my mom telling the story, she was like, I know what's happening. So she called me up and she was like, you need to leave him. Let me tell you why. And her sister is a therapist in Albuquerque. And she told her sister about me. Doesn't even know me. My sister does. My therapist doesn't even know my mom, but she knows her sister is best friends with my mom, has been for 30 plus years, 40 years probably. And she also had experience with narcissism, and she's a therapist. And so she counseled me for free for 2 years.
Wow.
And that just goes to show you how bad narcissism is. Because someone who recognized it, I call her my aunt, she called me and then she got me help. And I think that knowing you're not alone, learning not to blame yourself, giving a voice to your story, and then learning are the 4 biggest pieces of advice that I would give. Because the more you learn, the more you will know. And the more that you learn about yourself as well, in parallel with learning about the situation and narcissism and how to deal with that, the more you learn about yourself will help you leverage that strength. And I don't know if you have any final pieces of advice for people to sort of culminate this entire thing. But those are the 4 pieces that I think I would give.
I'm right there with you. I would too. I would also say one more book I could really recommend.
Okay.
It's Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller. Really good book. Figure out what your attachment style is. And from there, start working to get yourself to a more secure place. So that you're creating not just romantic relationships, friendships, family relationships, you're creating them to be healthier. Because even if you get yourself outside of a dangerous romantic relationship, you're still in relationship with people because we are in community. We do live in community. And you want to make sure that you're with people who are going to steward you well, love you well, treat you well, and help you heal and help you grow.
As we wrap this up, I just want to thank everybody for listening to this. This has been a lot of very raw, real, vulnerable, heavy information. These are our stories. These are our personal stories. These are our truths. And if you want to reach out to us, we'll put the resources and the information below that we mentioned. But we also have an email, leveluppodcastsquad@gmail.com. If you want to ask any questions or just hear that you're important and deserving of love. That's our dream for this 3-part series on narcissism, is to tell anybody that is experiencing it or needs help healing from it that you are worthy, you are enough, and we're here for you, and we love you. So that's all we have. Thanks for listening to the Level Up Podcast, and the squad wants you to know that we're here to help. Feel free to email us at leveluppodcastsquad@gmail.com. If you have any questions or comments or feedback, we would love to hear from you. God bless, and we'll see you next time here on Level Up.